What's up, guys? My name is Mickey. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to talk about UFC 248 taking place March 7th in Miami. So there's two fights, the two most important fights that are the co-main event and the main event. We have the co-main event, which takes place between Weili Zhang fighting against Joanna Jedrzejczyk. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but this is a fight to look out for. And this is going to be followed by the main event, which is going to take place between Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. So what I wanted to do in this video is, before giving my fight predictions, because the fight is in 5 days, what I wanted to do was give a recap. So basically, Weili Zhang, I don't know if you guys have heard of her before. Now, she's champion right now, but she's been champion for not so long. Basically, she is from Beijing, China. She's been, fighting all her life, and she's basically she's now defending her title for the first time against Joanna, who is an absolute veteran. Joanna is an individual that I remember, in the UFC, long ago, for the women's aspects. Now you have Amanda Nunes, but before that, Joanna was one of the top people that you would associate as the female champion. And so, just from out of nowhere, basically, you have this recently, this Chinese fighter, Weili Zhang, who is from Beijing, which is actually where I lived for 12 years, which is why, I'm deeply rooted in, her passions as well, and just her attitude. It's something that I've lived with, and I've experienced firsthand, and which is why I can connect with her already so much. It's not like we talk or anything, but at the same time, it's really dope when you can really connect with a fighter, and you can sort of find a bit of yourself as you sort of see them as friends, which is super weird, but that's this kind of connection that I built with Weili Zhang. I sound like I'm crazy, but from Beijing, China, grew up there, and I'm gonna delve a bit into her because basically she is an absolute all-around fighter, because usually and she said this herself, she says that the Chinese are not associated with strength, or they're just seen as very skinny people, very weak people, and so that's something that she wants to prove wrong. She wants to show the dominant side, the hard side of the people, and sort of debunk this stereotype. And if you look at her physique, she is on the right track of doing so, because she's an absolute animal. Something really interesting about her that I didn't see in other fighters, which made me extremely interested, was that she adopts a lot of the Chinese martial arts within her fighting. So she's led by her coach, Coach Tsai, who basically, he's her grappling coach, but at the same time, he connects her with a bunch of different coaches. And so the first thing that they focus on is the flow of qi. And so qi is basically the whole idea behind the martial art of Tai Chi, which is basically what, you see the people outside doing all these movements early in the morning. That's basically I don't have all the background on what Tai Chi is, but it's a type of martial art that I believe from the outside focuses a lot on the flow of energy, which is both mental and physical. And the way that Weili Zhang describes this is that she, by implementing Tai Chi within her, practice, and, within her fighting abilities, she is able to get a more flow like she's able to get more flow in punches. She's able to increase that dynamic when it comes to that movement in the punch or the jab or the kicks. And so that is something extremely interesting that I think makes her an extremely good fighter. Second type of martial art that she works with is wushu. When I lived in China, I did like 1 year of wushu or 2 years of wushu, and it required a lot of flexibility, which is why I quit after like a month. Basically, she also adopts wushu into her training regimen, and that, like, just by thinking about it, I haven't seen her train wushu specifically, but I know the like the level of like I know the way it works, how like I know how wushu works, and it requires a lot of flexibility, a lot of focus. Basically, wushu is a sport that also encompasses different levels called taolus. You have taolu 1 through taolu, I think 6 or 7. I don't remember exactly. And the way you move up in rank is shown by this taolu level. Just the fact that she already encompasses these 2 types of China's most famous martial art, I think it's something that really sets her apart from other fighters, and which is why, like, I stand behind Weili so much, and I truly hope that she takes this home. She also trains with other coaches when it comes to wrestling, and I think what makes her an extremely different fighter is also like the origins. Like, we saw this before with Conor McGregor being like the first Irish man to sort of penetrate the UFC and just break through into the industry as one of the best. And so there's actually a reason behind why a lot of Chinese fighters in particular only made it so far, and this has to do with a background like of what went behind the scenes in this process. So a lot of interviews were done with the coaches of the Chinese fighters at the time who weren't able to break through, and they said that there was a problem with investors because at the time the UFC was not as big as it is today. I forget how much the UFC is worth, probably a lot of money, but basically a lot of the Chinese investors decided to pull back and quit investing into the funds for UFC coaches, training, and stuff like that. So basically the conditions of those Chinese fighters were in no way, shape, or form adequate to the fighting level. So they weren't given the right equipment to train. They weren't given the right level of guidance to train, the facilities even. And so that's why, like, you're obviously, if you lack a good preparation, like, you're not going to be able to get the same results as other people who do not lack that preparation. And so Weili, I think, is in a situation where she also has that advantage because the investors are on her side, because you have the UFC being one of the biggest agencies at this moment. And this is really interesting because, just to make a little parenthesis, like Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers talks about this, and I think this is a perfect example of it, because he says, Gladwell basically says that success is not just like you work hard, you get it. It's like, yeah, 10,000 hour rule, like, by all means, of course. He says if you don't work those 10,000 hours, you can't achieve your results. But at the same time, he also talks about the being at the right place at the right time. And so I think many of the previous Chinese fighters that weren't able to break through, it was caused by something that was out of their control. Whereas now Weili, she has the luck of being in the situation where she is. Other than the fact that she's a phenomenal fighter, she also has like that luck on her side that's able to grant her the best training, the best facility to work at, the best coaches and nutritionists, etc. And obviously in the past, when she wanted to take the jump to take on the UFC, she had to quit her normal job just so she could dedicate all those hours into training. And, step by step, up she went, and now she is champion. And she is defending her title fight against Joanna Jedrzejczyk. I can't pronounce that name, but I've seen I've seen Joanna fight before. She's from Poland. She's got 16 wins, 3 losses under her belt. Weili, she's got 20 wins and 1 loss. But Joanna, I think she has that experience. Something I think particular about Joanna that I consider is that obviously she's a great fighter, but at the same time, there has been she's been facing like personal issues outside of the octagon. I think her fight before this one, where she has to fight in March 7th, she took the victory. She was champion, but at the same time, she had to take a break from the UFC because she had problems with, her ex-fiance or something like that, as well as her manager. And so she had and that stuff is like mentally like draining, like all that behind the scenes stuff, like management, like people sort of take it for granted and like sort of look over it. But other than fighting, like these people have a business and an image to maintain, as well as a personal life to, grow. And so she had a lot of personal issues outside the ring, which sort of took her away from the sport a little bit. And, at the same time though, it was also said that her coaches were, very close to her. They continued to make her train. But at the same time, I just think Weili is in such a better place mentally, because she's just so driven. Like she has a purpose, like, which is to do it for her people, for her country. She's got a fan base around her. She talked about how Weili really wanted to learn English. She's studying English to connect with fans, even from the USA. And so, like, my point is that I just think she's she's in a better place right now than Joanna is. Having said this, though, Joanna does have that fighter instinct behind her. Like she's been more in the big leagues. Like, yeah, you see 20 wins by Weili, 16 by Joanna, but Joanna has been in the UFC for a longer time. And so she's been under the big stage before, and she knows how to maintain her emotions during that hard time. And so, as I said, this was just a little background of what these two fighters are going through to the lead up of this fight, and I just think we should consider, when I do make my prediction afterwards in the next coming videos, like I will pretty much base them off of this analysis, based on this background, because I truly think, the lead up to the fight is as, if not more important than the fight itself. If you're a fighter that has lacked preparation or has not been, in the right mental state to take on a fight in the near future, chances are you'll crumble under the main stage. However, if you've taken the fight regimen seriously, you haven't been distracted by other external factors, you'll show up fight night, you'll be confident more than ever, and you'll kill it. So that's it. I'm so excited for this fight. I really want Weili to win, just because like I find so much of myself in her, like, her roots, the way, like, where she grew up is where I grew up. I really ride with this fighter. And so, that's pretty much all I had to say. And, I'll be making a prediction in the next video about how I think this fight will end. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks for watching.